Well, as spring training inches closer and closer to us, we wanted to take a moment to kind of review where the state of the St. Louis Cardinals roster is right now. What is their confidence level in the infield, outfield, rotation, bullpen, lineup as a whole, defensive alignment? Who do we expect to be on the roster and who may be fighting for a spot this spring training? We'll kind of give a roster preview today on this episode of Dealing the Cards. Welcome back to a late night edition of Dealing the Cards. Josh with Sandy and Andrew, as always. We're the host of the Dealing the Cards podcast. We go live twice a week over here. We also have Birds on the Farm, which we have a special episode coming this weekend. I think information about that one will drop. It's a pretty exciting one, so stay tuned for that. And we do that with Kareem Hawk, who you guys can find over on Twitter as well. And yeah, we are St. Louis Cardinals podcast, and we just got back from winter warm-up this past weekend, so you can watch our review of winter warm-up from earlier in the week. We're presented by 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles, and I want to start off by thanking them. They're an incredible sponsor of the podcast, and many of you already checked them out and it will shop there, but they're located at 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. They're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 on Saturdays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards, and the newest selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars around the league. Go check them out for all of your sports cards needs. If you're like Andrew and just take all the Shohei Ohtani cards, you can get one there. But then we also want to thank our partner of Underdog Sports. They're our favorite place to play fantasy games. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. And you can earn 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, you can sign up with the promo code CARDS, which is on the screen now, and you can use the link in our description to go straight to the app. But use the promo code CARDS to claim your first free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's pretty nice. Yeah. We can't wait to see your entries. AFC, NFC Championship this weekend. You should probably make some picks on Mahomes because he's 23-3 in the playoffs. So
he always finds a way.
Always finds a way. But speaking of finding a way, the Cardinals roster is going to have to find a way to impress people this year. And what a transition. Thank you. I appreciate that. I better be getting some love in the comments for that one. And so, yeah, today I think we wanted to kind of talk through what we expect the roster to look like. There's some areas that seem pretty clear. There's others that I feel like have more question marks. There's some areas where there's going to be a roster competition. And so we can kind of talk through that, roster battles, and all that kind of stuff. And so, do we just kind of want to run through order position players into the pitching staff and then kind of go from there?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, let's start with maybe one of the most hot topic ones of all, which is the catcher position, right? Obviously, if you haven't kept up with the Cardinals this offseason, Wilson Contreras will be moving to first base. And so the 2 projected catchers on the roster right now would be Ivan Herrera and Pedro Pages. How that playing time gets broken up will remain to be seen. Andrew thankfully asked Ollie about that winter warm-up, but as we expected, Ollie didn't really answer his question and kind of just kept it how it is, which, I mean, again, spring training will probably play a role in this, but just saying, you kind of off the cuff, you look at the Cardinals catching unit. What's your confidence level in the Cardinals catching depth and who they have? Also, you've got Jimmy Crooks as a potential guy who's probably the next man up if a significant injury happens within Memphis. But you think of that unit of Pedro, Pages, Ivan Herrera, potentially Jimmy Crooks, and if they need to, Wilson Contreras. Like, how do you feel about the Cardinals catchers, and how do you think it's going to shake out when it comes opening day?
I think the catching unit's the biggest, potentially the biggest strength on the team.
Yeah.
Maybe the bullpen, but I really like the catching depth the Cardinals have. We've talked a lot about Ivan Herrera this offseason. He's a guy that posted a 124 OPS plus last year, or maybe it was 128, whatever it was.
128.
128. Second highest on the team. It just so happens that the best hitter on the team was the catcher last year. That's Wilson Contreras. He's been the best hitter each of the last 2 years. And like you said, yes, he's probably going to play first base for most of the year. He'll mix in a DH a little bit. But look, if there's a significant injury and Pedro Pages isn't getting it done, Contreras remains an option back there. He's turned into a better defensive catcher in St. Louis, but he's getting older, and it makes sense to move him out of the position at this point. You need his bat in the lineup as often as possible, but it's not like he's a black hole defensively. Certainly better than he was in Chicago. So I feel great about those two. Pedro Pages, yeah, he's there. The pitchers love throwing to him. He wins a lot of games. I think he's a very good backup catcher. I think he's an above-average backup catcher. And I think the offense could improve this year. He was all right offensively in the minor leagues. yeah, nobody thought he would grade out as an above average hitter at the big league level, but I think we thought he'd be better than like a 59 OPS plus. To be fair, though, he had some clutch moments last year. A couple of little runs that he had, especially against the Cubs last year. Felt like he was playing pretty well in Chicago. He had a couple big hits. So he's a perfectly viable backup catcher, defensive wizard. Although the people that think he should be the starter because he supposedly controls the run game better than Herrera, couldn't disagree more. I think neither of them is excellent at controlling the run game. That's going to be a big problem for the catching position. And then you mentioned Jimmy Crooks. He broke out in a big way last year. We've talked about him a lot with Kareem over on Birds on the Farm. If you go check that out, Crooks probably, I know Quinn Matthews got all the flowers last year. Crooks quietly had the most successful developmental season of any position player in the organization, I would say. He was excellent. Hits a ton of line drives. He's got a great contact profile, almost never strikes out, and he takes walks. So he's got gap-to-gap power, which traditionally plays very well at Busch Stadium where it's hard to hit home runs. So he's a guy that I would expect the Cardinals to use if there's a significant injury. And I do think if it comes to a point where it's Pedro Pages is the everyday guy, I think Crooks will push him for that. Crooks, I expect to start the year at AAA. There's not really anyone in his way. And again, I'd rather see him every day at this point in time than Pedro Pages. So overall, a lot of strengths here. There are 3, potentially 4, if you're counting Contreras, viable options. All of them are above average players, at least in some sense. So this is probably the Cardinals' biggest strength on the position player side.
You want to know who the top 3 hitting catchers were in baseball last year?
I mean, Willson Contreras is probably one of them. William Contreras, Willson Contreras, and
Ivan Herrera.
Are you serious?
Yeah, by WRC Plus, it goes Willson Contreras at 140, William Contreras at 131, and Ivan Herrera at 127.
Is Cal Raleigh next on that list? Is he 4th?
Cal Raleigh's 5th. Joey Bart was 4th.
Joey Bart was awesome last year.
It's like, honestly, it's pretty impressive when you think about it. Like Contreras, obviously, if he remained healthy, is an MVP candidate. Probably top 10 at least with that offense. And the defense was improving. It wasn't like something to write home about, but it was average enough, maybe slightly above average at times. Again, Ivan Herrera's bat was just incredible. You talked about like Pedro Pages is known for his defense, his game calling, framing, probably more so on the game calling and the pitching field. I believe the Cardinals pitchers had a 1-run ERA lower with Pages behind the plate compared to Ivan and Contreras last year. But when you think of Ivan, it's an elite hitter for the position. Obviously, again, he was like top 3 in baseball. Does it sustain over a full season? That's a good question. But like, again, if he's a 127 in 80 games, I would doubt he's lower than a 115 in a full season. Yeah. And so that's still a huge asset. And then his arm strength, his arm strength is weaker than Pedro Pages, but Pedro Pages didn't control the run game really any better than Ivan Herrera did. I do think
it will against the Cardinals.
Yeah, and I do think there's probably an argument that Pedro Pages is a starter in this league, but he's just like a low end one. Like his bat, he was like an 85 WRC plus last year. So in a guy that plays more of a primary catcher role, that's like bottom third of baseball, but it's not like it's not great, but for a catcher, it's among the top 30 guys. But the defense plays him up.
Maldonado still gets.
Yeah, so he's like a poor man. He's honestly kind of like a poor man's Maldonado, I guess, because the defense isn't quite to that level. But yeah, I totally agree with you that there is you can make a really good argument that the catcher, if you take the catcher position as its own unit, like in this discussion we're doing, that's the strongest thing the Cardinals have right now. Because who knows what Jimmy Crooks is, and then you've got in your back pocket Wilson can move back to catcher if they need it at any moment. So, Andrew, what's your confidence level in the catcher position? I think we're going to see probably a split early on, Pages to Ivan, more 50-50 than it should be. Again, we're gone are the days where a catcher plays 150 games, so you're not going to get a primary guy anymore. But I kind of doubt Ivan is like the full-on starter. But yeah, Andrew, what do you think?
Based on the comments at winter warm-up, I have actually not a lot of confidence that will even be 50-50. I feel like they're going to stick with Pedro Pages as the starting catcher, which is a huge mistake. Unless they trade Ivan Herrera, in which case, go get something good for him if you're not going to play him, I guess.
Another huge mistake.
Yeah, that would be bad. I don't like the idea of trading Herrera, but yeah, I think it definitely like the comments from Ollie made it sound like that they're both going to get run to like it's an interesting comment in the chat, but well, we can address that later. But for sure, like it seems like they're a lot higher on Pages than we should be. Obviously, they won a lot more of the games where Pages started last year, but I feel like that to some extent just as kind of luck and not really like you need to see more from that sample size. It's possible that the pitchers are more comfortable pitching to Pedro Pages than Ivan Herrera, and I think that just has to do with a lot of the pitchers on the roster right now are older and they have more say in what they get to do and they have more control on that. And they say it's a young guys clubhouse, but if Miles Michaelis is out there saying I'd rather pitch to Pedro Pages than Ivan Herrera, we really need to reconsider whether or not he should actually be on the roster. And then,
well, I mean, I think it sounds pretty clear that they've realized there's an issue there. Like,
right.
Especially when you have Wilson and Sonny Gray leading the way they say they are right now, like it's hard. Like, I think it allows a guy like Miles Michaelis and Jack Flaherty last year and or 2023 and all of that to kind of get away with some stuff when your leaders like Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and I don't know about Adam Wainwright, but it doesn't seem like they really flex their muscles to speak against that kind of, I guess.
Yeah, but like if Eric Fetty is requesting to throw to Pedro Pages, like I'm sorry, like no.
I don't think that's gonna happen. Like they might do that, but I don't think that's. Right. I don't think it's be like last year or 2 years ago where they were able to move Wilson Contreras out of the catcher position. I don't think they're gonna have that much influence.
That was crazy.
But I worry about things like that. And then it just kind of seems like the organization as a whole is higher on Pages for whatever reason. Like hopefully, like we didn't get a chance to hear from Ivan Herrera and see how his offseason was going and about his throwing program, which was unfortunate. He wasn't able to make it to the event at the last minute, but like I would have really liked to see like have more clarity on what he's been up to. And I was trying to get some answers from Ollie where it was like, yeah, Herrera's really been working on his arm and we've seen some great improvements, but at the end of the day, he didn't really get into the specifics. So I'm just worried about that. If they do decide to start Herrera like 70, 65% of the time, that'd be really good. It'll be a top catching unit in all of baseball. And if they DH Herrera on the days that he's not catching, then that's even better. So Kareem's in the chat teasing something exciting. I would imagine that's coming this weekend. But yeah, I definitely am kind of excited to see how the catching situation works out, but I have little faith. Like that's probably the one disagreement I'll have with Ollie on how to manage this roster.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, we haven't seen what happened with the throwing program, right? And if that's really their main concern with Ivan, I think they want him to grow in other ways too, but if he comes in and has fixed that in their eyes, like I think that gives them a huge leg up. They're not idiots. Okay, time out. I'll walk that back. They're not dumb and don't see the difference of hitters that Ivan and Pedro are. Like they understand that part. They just clearly think there's a gap there that I think most of us probably disagree with in terms of the defense. So I think if Ivan comes in and shows he's made strides in that area, I don't think they'll hesitate to make Ivan the everyday guy. I just am not totally sure he's made none of us know, right? Like until we see. Like remember like couple spring, it was 2023 when you came into the season and it was like, oh, Tyler O'Neill's a center fielder now. It's like, wait, what? Like we had no idea this offseason that he was becoming a center fielder. It's like we have no idea what Ivan's work has been until they get to camp and we start getting reviews and we see in-game stuff. Like it was hard to know. So right now I'm going to bank with status quo, but I really hope they give Ivan the runway here. But any other thoughts on catcher position, or do we kind of want to move to some of the other position groups here?
I mean, I just want to say one more thing. I want to back what Andrew's saying. Like, Pedro Pages is not like a terrible catcher. I just want to put that out there first.
Yeah.
Pedro Pages last year worth about 1 B WAR in 68 games. Not a ton of starts there too. So it's pretty impressive stuff. Like his defense is really good. He is a defensive savant. I would say he's an elite receiver. He's not a great thrower, but it's not that big a deal. It's so overrated at the catching position, the ability to control the run game. Like it matters. And it's nice when you have Yadi or Molina back there, but most people aren't Yadi, and Cardinals fans need to stop comparing everyone to Yadi. Just because you can't throw everybody out, it doesn't mean you can't be a productive player. Yeah. The other thing, though, as good as he was, Ivan Herrera was better. 1.7 B WAR in only 72 games, so very similar sample size. And that's with him as what the Cardinals see as a below-average defender. I just think I'd take that offensive value right now, even if he's that much worse of a defender in their eyes, because the results speak for themselves. That puts him on pace to be roughly a 4 to 5 WAR catcher, it's a super valuable player. And
oh yeah, I mean that's a top 70 player in baseball at least.
Yeah, I think if he's starting every day too, you could even see consistency start to make him even better. So I don't know. I think it'd be a shame to not go with Ivan Herrera this year.
Agreed.
I mean, there's a world where the league does figure him out, and he's maybe not as good offensively, but just give it a shot. I feel like he has way more upside than Pedro Pages.
Well, and he's been a good hitter throughout his minor league career. Ivan Herrera comes with legitimate prospect pedigree that Pedro Pages just doesn't have. Pages very, very infrequently made his way into like Cardinals top 30 prospect list. Ivan Herrera was a mainstay in the top 5 for several years. He appeared on MLB Pipeline's top 100 at one point, Baseball America's top 100 at one point. Even afterwards, there were a lot of people saying that there was prospect fatigue, and that's the only reason he wasn't appearing on these lists anymore. He's a really good player. And I think we've talked about this with the pitching, but it has to be said here. We know what we have in Pedro Pages. He's a really good defender who's not a great hitter. That's not going to change. You know, his 90th percentile outcome is probably like 90 WRC plus, and his 20th percentile outcome is probably like 75. We kind of know who he is as a player. We don't know who Ivan Herrera is exactly. And if you've got a year to figure it out, you should figure it out right now. We've said it with the pitching, and it needs to be said here. The Cardinals cannot exit 2025 without knowing what Ivan Herrera has. Because if you know what he has and you know he's the everyday starter for the next 4 years, that's amazing. Now you found a guy who's a legitimate force in your lineup, and he's going to lock down behind the plate for the next several years and potentially be an extension candidate for you, a building block for your franchise. You cannot go into 2026, though, just pissing away his pre-arb years and not know what he is as a player. That would be a huge mistake.
True that. Let's move on just because we got multiple position groups to get to. Sure. So an area that unfortunately we still don't have clarity on because the current third baseman is still the current third baseman in the St. Louis Cardinals. So that I think honestly has a bigger impact on the infield than just the fact that Corbin can't play third base. But let's kind of run through it real quick. So as of today, you have Willson Contreras at first base, probably Nolan Gorman at second base, Nolan Arenado at third base, Mason Wentz shortstop. If Nolan Arenado is traded, you've got Nolan Gorman at third base and Brendan Donovan at second base. The bench, you would think Thomas Sajacy is on there, but if Nolan Arenado is in town, there's probably a decent chance that Sajacy goes to Memphis then to get more at-bats. You've got Luke and Baker as a potential option for the roster, Jose Fermin, Jose Barrero, someone that maybe can make the roster. That's kind of the infield options at this point. I mean, Alec Burleson's a first baseman, but I'm going to count him more in the outfielder group. I mean, I guess as things currently stand, again, it's actually a sneaky strong unit. Again, Mason Wynn, I think arguably is a top 10. Well, I think he's top 10 shortstop in baseball. Apparently MLB Network doesn't think that. Apparently they think Dansby Swanson's number 5, which is just insane. He might even be top 15, but we're just going to leave that there. It's insane. And Brendan Donovan's, I think, a top 5 second baseman in baseball. Nolan Gorman, like on paper right now, is nowhere close to a top 10 third baseman, but he's got the upside. And then you got Willson Contreras, so I think he'd be a top 5 first baseman. So you look around this lineup, I think you already have a top 10 shortstop, a top 5 second baseman, a top 5 first baseman. And then third base is a huge wild card, where you've got Nolan Arenado there, or you've got the variance of Nolan Gorman. And then off the bench, like again, Sajacy's a guy that's really interesting as your guy off the bench. And then Baker and Fermin are kind of whatever to me. But my confidence level in this infield is actually pretty high, which is weird because when I think about this team right now, I feel like I have a lot of question marks. But then I'm just like, I'm trying to think of how many infields in baseball would take over the St. Louis Cardinals right now. I should probably have done homework on that beforehand, so I'm not gonna act like it's a top 5 infield in the game. But I don't think it's trash by any means. I think there's a lot to like there. Andrew, what about you?
I mean, I don't know if I would trade Nolan Arenado at this point. Like,
whoa,
I know.
Crazy for Andrew.
And it seems like that, like, I don't know. What would I rather have right now?
Look at this.
Like Nolan Arenado or a reliever and like an extra bench bat. Like, do I really care if the Cardinals
save money? No, I don't.
No, yeah, exactly. I don't really care if they save money. First of all, we talked about this in depth last time. And I don't really care if instead of Nolan Arenado, they have the space to sign John Brebbia and then they bring in, I don't know, Harrison Bader
Well,
Like
it's
it's
also
really like I don't really care.
we're
if I'm
talking
being
about did you care about Nolan Gorman getting enough playing time at third base? Do you care about Thomas and JC getting 300, 405, not 500, but probably 400 at bats this year? Like that stuff doesn't happen if you have Nolan Arenado in town. I'm not saying it's the right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's not just about freeing money and getting a reliever. It's also about creating opportunities for the other guys.
And no, I get that.
And Burleson will get less at bats.
And for all the people in the chat saying JJ, he's never really played third base. And also, please don't rush him to the major leagues right away. That would be a big mistake.
Yeah, I'd like to wait on JJ too.
Yeah, there's no way it makes opening day roster.
He's not going to make the opening day roster. He might maybe sneak his way up to the. I hope you don't see him next year, honestly, just so he gets the time.
I mean, if he's ready,
really deserve. If he's ready, but like I doubt it. Like I don't. Prospects don't turn around that quickly.
We're talking about a different level of prospect than the Cardinals had before.
Okay,
I don't think we've wrapped our head around that yet. Like he was okay. So Baseball America just came out their top 100. He's the 25th prospect in baseball. He's the second ranked from the class. So Travis Bazzana is the only guy who ranked above him. If you look at past draft classes, there's 4, 5, 6 guys from the first round every year who end up making the MLB debut the very next year. Especially if he's this talented and pro ready, I don't think it's out of the question at all. JJ Weatherholt's ready in 2025. I do agree with you though. I think it's unlikely, and I would rather be patient. But I don't think it's like crazy to think he'd be up here. Like I don't think it's like, oh, the Cardinals for sure rushed him then.
Yeah,
that's fair. I don't know. I think though, like a lot of the times that those guys make their debuts right away, there's something weird going on. Like Sean will coming up for the Angels immediately. Like I did not like that move for them.
And how many times have they been like really good right away? Like I like Skeens, and that's it.
I mean, you had what was it Wyatt Langford a couple years ago, but it was at the end of the season, it's postseason. But
Langford wasn't super strong this year.
Evan Carter
or Evan Carter, yeah, Evan.
Well, actually, no, Evan Carter was
it last year, and actually Evan Carter was a 2020 draft class. I'd have to go back and look, but there are guys who've made it up
this year right away. Like he started this year and he was not awesome until later in the season. He ended up putting together a decent year, but it did not start that way.
Yeah.
But like going back to the Arenado point, like there's a world where you give all your young players playing time if you're just comfortable sitting Siani and putting Nootbaar in center field. And I know I've like kind of pushed back on that, and we'll get to the outfield later on, but like why not? Like if Nootbaar thinks that like I don't know. I really wanted to ask him which outfield position he was comfortable at. I didn't get a chance to, but like comfortable at with his body and like staying healthy at that position. And like if center field that he felt was more taxing, I didn't get to ask him that, but like I would have really liked to know what his answer would have been, because it seems like that is his priority. And if he still like wants to play center field, then clearly he feels a degree of comfort there where like he doesn't think he's going to get hurt right away, like a Tyler O'Neill would with like soft tissue stuff. But like if you keep Arenado, like there's really the only player that you're making room for if management and if the front office and Ollie are in agreement on is Siani. And at that point, I don't care.
I don't think that's true though, because so right now, if you have Arenado, Nolan Gorman moves to DH. So Alec Burleson's not playing anymore. He's not starting.
No, you stick Arenado.
Wait. Put Gorman at second and let Donovan play in the outfield.
Yeah, that's what.
So you're putting Nootbaar in center field then?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. The only player you're making room for by keeping or by trading Arenado is Siani. If the coaching and if the front office is on the same page that Nootbaar is a capable center fielder.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, then you're not making any room for Scott.
But Scott, like
you're still taking away time for JC.
Yeah, but JC would still get to mix in a fair amount in that scenario, I think, because think about this. You've got Nootbaar in center.
Someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah. You play Nootbaar in center, Donovan in right. You let Burleson get some time in left, and you can platoon him with whoever else you want to play the outfield. And then Gorman's your primary second baseman. Arenado is your primary third baseman. Obviously, Wynn and Contreras at first and short. Sajazi could play a lot of DH. He could switch with Burleson at DH too, and you could be mixing him in at second and letting Gorman DH sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you can have 10 regulars with 9 positions.
I guess you're getting a lot, but you're not just getting worse defensively in center field though. You're getting worse defensively. So you
getting
get
better defensively at third.
Yeah, but you're getting worse defensively at second because you could have had Donovan there. And then it's probably a push left field, Nootbaar and Donovan, but you could probably argue Donovan's a little bit, or Nootbaar's a little bit better of a left fielder than Donovan. So I see it. Like if they do keep Nato, I'm totally like I would love to have that conversation of putting Newton center because you maximize the guys you play. But
it would be so much better.
So much better.
It would be, yeah.
I'll be honest. Like, I would rather the Cardinals have a competent offense this year, just on the whole, after watching last season, and sacrifice a little bit defensively. Then, because at some point last year, they were running out every game, like 3 to 4 players who you knew weren't going to get a hit all night. Like,
also, your so-called ground ball pitchers, Eric Fetty, Andre Palante, and maybe Miles Michaelis, don't really like. If they keep the ball on the ground, then it's not an issue, right?
Yeah, I think he gets a little sketchy.
Or if the ball's on the ground, I would argue.
I'm not against this. I just think about it more. The outfield gets sketchy because you've got Walker in right field, which it's like we'll see what that looks like, and then your best defensive outfielder then is Brendan Donovan in left field because you have an average at best center fielder, Nootbaar, and you've probably got a below average right fielder and then an above average left fielder. So your outfield defense is pretty weak at that point, but it might be worth the trade.
With all of their position players healthy, one of them is going to get hurt. Like I don't see a world where
I don't want to plan for that right now, though. Like I don't want to bank on an injury happening.
Like every year it happened. Like last year, Nootbaar was hurt. The year before that, I think someone else was hurt.
Yes, injuries will happen.
And like it's just going to happen. Like it's not. It's like how Mo's building the rotation. Like he's probably penciled McGreevy in because he thinks one of the 5 is going to get hurt. Like
I sure hope McGreevy gets to pitch.
Yeah, but hey, one thing I do want to go back to earlier because there were some comments, which I think is this is something that I also think we haven't wrapped our head around yet. It's back to the JJ thing real quick. Cleveland, who's a channel member, put in there like Carlson was a high prospect. Jordan Walker. Here's the difference though: Dylan Carlson and Jordan Walker had to prove things at the minor league level to get to that status. Like Jordan Walker had an incredible Double-A season, which put him in the top 5 prospects in baseball after a season 2. That was his second year in the minor leagues, I believe. Dylan Carlson also had an incredible season in Double-A that boosted him in the top 15 prospects in baseball. Upon being drafted, JJ Weatherholt was a top 25 prospect in all baseball. The Cardinals have not had a prospect like that like this isn't the whole like Mo saying Dylan Carlson's our best prospect since Albert Pujols thing. This is a different level of like Cardinals have not had a prospect of this pedigree enter their system.
With this polish too. It's about the polish with Weatherholt.
Right. Tommy Edman, I forgot about him.
Those guys are high school guys. Like Weatherholt's getting drafted out of college, had real exposure.
Yeah,
was almost the number 1 pick. Yeah, he's a special player.
So, anyways, it's not to say that he's for sure going to be the best player we've seen out of the Cardinal system in a long time. But the pedigree he has is very different than what other guys have had. And again, like I think to Kareem's point, I think he's a safer floor than what a Walker did and probably a Carlson. Like I've actually heard people compare him to Carlson before, but saying he's like got the muscle that Dylan Carlson never had, which was part of the difference of why he never really had that output. Anyways, let's move on to the outfield then, because we kind of started getting into the discussion. So again, what it probably looks like right now is you've got Nootbaar in left field, Walker in right, Ciani probably in center, maybe Victor Scott. I don't know what they do with the bench, the 4th outfielder spot. If because it could be Koperniak. I don't know if they would love him in center field though. I don't think they're gonna have Scott come off the bench. I think they'd probably put him in Memphis if he's Brendan Donovan. Well, but they need another center fielder option, which it could be Newt in a pinch. And they just play Ciani all the time. I think there's that sneaky option. They go and get that right-handed bat that plays center field, whether it's like a Randall Grichuk type.
I would love.
Does Randall Grichuk play center field? I've never seen him play center field.
Yeah,
it's not like a solid level too. He's not a bad center fielder.
I bet it's probably a little below average now in his career.
He's like 35, isn't he? He's I don't know.
But I mean, again, it would be a cheap option, and it would be only to play against left-handed pitching, which Randall Grichuk last year was like 30% above league average against left-handed pitching. So that would be helpful. Harrison Bader, but I think he would want an everyday job somewhere. But I think that so. Oh, go ahead.
He was a 2.2 WAR player and 250 at bats. Like he was on almost
only playing against lefties.
Yeah, And he's not gonna do that all the time because he's not gonna be as good against righties. But Randall Grichuk would be a great ad.
True. So I mean, that's the outfield option right now. I mean, I guess we can continue the conversation. It's like, okay, let's say like Nato's gone. Like, even I guess we only really have that conversation. What do you do if Nato's still here? Like, are you guys of the opinion that Newt should get serious consideration for center field to open up? Because again, even if Nato's not here, that opens up our opportunity for Thomas Ajayci at least.
Yes.
Second base.
Second, third, or not short, obviously. But then also like it could open up the DH spot more, because if they're gonna play Herrera or they're gonna play Pages as a catcher more, you need that DH spot to open up for Herrera more often.
Like, I don't think, like, if you're gonna have Newton center, then I don't see a world where you do that without keeping Arenado, because like the reason I want to hold on to Arenado is like, one, like he's still like a fine hitter and he's a good defender, and if you're not going to get anything back for him, then like I like, honestly, I don't really care how much money they save, because they're not going to reinvest all of it, right?
Our priorities are different for sure.
Right. And like, they save that money, they're not going to reinvest it in the team. So why should I care where the rest of that goes?
Oh, you're back.
Oh.
You did cut for a second.
But no, I just heard myself echo for a little bit. I don't know. That was odd. Okay. You guys talk.
Yeah, you can fix your audio for a second, but again, I think I would be interested to see him run in center field and see what happens, and if he like if his defense looks better or good enough where you value the bat. Because again, like if Nuke could play average center field and you get that kind of bat in center field, he becomes a really good center fielder. That bat is good for left field, but not quite like, it doesn't compare to some of the superstar corner outfilders we see in baseball right now. Yeah, but that kind of bat in center field play is big time. So I think it's interesting to see what he could do in center field. Now I can hear my audio, Andrew. But I think you probably run Siani or Scott out there. Probably Scott, in my opinion. I want to see what he's got. But again, if he's not ready, like if he comes to camp and they're like, this dude needs more seasoning, then put him in AAA. Don't rush him.
When looking at the whole lineup, though, like I really don't want to see Siani and Pages in the lineup at the same time, because like you can deal with one black hole offensively for the defense, and the Cardinals have survived with that for a long time at different positions. But you don't want to see two in a row. And if Nolan Gorman is what Nolan Gorman was last year, like you could potentially be looking at three of those guys. You just can't have that, because a team that's lineup becomes that shallow. And also, like, you don't want to bat Nolan Gorman seventh,
True.
like with the power potential, you want him to be hitting fifth at least. You don't want to have that. You don't want to have Pages and Siani at the bottom of the lineup hitting 175 with zero power, right? Like that's just not, you can't win games like that. It doesn't matter how great your defense is at that point. You look a lot like the 2024 Cardinals. And if you have a lead at all, it'll be a 1-run lead that your bullpen has to lock down for 4 innings to protect. It's not what I want to see. So
yeah,
I guess it depends how the lineup looks, but if you need the infusion of offense, I would take the offense. Again, I just want to see a competent offensive unit this year, far more than I want to see a defensive unit that may or may not have real value.
True. All right, Andrew, let's test it out.
See what happens. Mo's messing with my internet because he really wants to move Arenado. But
gosh,
I mean, I just think that like he has the potential to rebuild his value, and he probably wants to do that. And according to the front office, like the relationship isn't necessarily strained, and he still doesn't like hate it here. It's not like it was in Colorado where he was asking out. The Cardinals approached him and was like, "Hey, do you want to leave?" And he was like, "Sure," but like he wouldn't necessarily like need to if an opportunity didn't arise. And like at this point, like are we just like, when's Alex Bregman going to sign? Like we're 3 weeks away from pitchers and catchers.
Yeah,
and like at that point, just go into spring training with him on the roster, run him out there, put Newt in center field, whatever. If the defense is not quite there, it's fine. Like your lineup is much better with Arenado over Siani in the lineup. And then if he has a really good first half, I guarantee you one of those teams that's in contention will lose a third baseman, right? Like if Max Muncy goes down and the Dodgers are scrambling at third base and they don't have anything, they might trade for Arenado. Right now, they don't need that. Right now, they're getting everybody. And, like, I don't know. I would love to see Roki Sasaki play third base, but that's not going to happen. So they're going to need to get someone else to fill that role, right? So, like, the guys they're signing right now can't fill that role. And maybe they have to go out and make another move like they did last year at the deadline to fill some of those injuries that they have. Another team could have that same situation arise, and then maybe you have a couple teams that are bidding for Arenado, and he knows that they're in contention because he's looking at the standings, and like people overpay for people at the deadline. Like that's just how things have generally gone. And like a desperate team could actually give you something in return for Arenado, especially if he has a good first half, which I mean, at this point, I don't really question that. Like he'll probably be better than he was last year, hopefully.
Yeah, I guess I don't think we're taking enough into account, though, the risk of, especially if a team is willing to eat a lot or take on a lot of Nato's contract, if he does suck. Like, because part of this is clearing the books for Bloom in 2026 and 2027. If we want the Cardinals to be aggressive financially, like, I agree, saving the money now and in general is not in the fans' interest, but I think we're downplaying the fact that if the DeWitts give Bloom a budget, which they always will, like every owner does, and Arenado's on your books and he's being overpaid, then you're paying $5 million of his contract for him to play elsewhere. Now you're paying him $25 million next year or $20 million next year. And you could have used that extra $15 million towards something else. So I do think they
could move him though, like next off season if they had to.
I mean, they could, but at that point if he hasn't shown
his contract is more front loaded anyway, so like I feel like
he's gonna get cheaper. I feel like there could be a more favorable deal, especially if he just does the same thing he did last year, this year. I feel like that's close to his floor. I don't see Arenado getting that much worse.
I mean, he's just getting older. So like
he's not old enough yet to be talking about like
he's 34, right?
I think he's younger than that.
I don't.
Let me check.
I think he's 34.
He's 34, but then he makes 16 and then 15 the next 2 years, which is like not
wait,
far
he doesn't make 16 next year.
Yeah, he does.
Oh yeah, I guess he turns 34.
No, right? I think he's at 26 next year.
He's at 16 in 2026.
What are you looking at?
Sport Track.
Oh, Sport
Track.
There's
a bunch of deferrals. I forgot about that.
Sport Track is not the place to be looking. If you're looking at Fangraphs roster resources, the best place to
he deferred a lot of money, Sandy. I don't know why you weren't.
So he's on the books for $32 million this year, but 27 to the Cardinals, 27 next year, but 22 to the Cardinals, 15 the year after. I'm not discounting the fact that there is a world where he increases the value, but I don't think it's as simple as he'll definitely be more valuable later. There's also a chance you're stuck with the contract. I think if he could play worse.
I hope
like
not.
That's because if everyone in the world agreed he wasn't going to play worse, I think someone would have traded for him by now. I'm not saying that teams that are looking into him think it's going to happen, but it's within the range of teams have been interested, but it's within the range of outcomes in their minds. Yes, but I'm saying other teams would have made an aggressive offer if there's no doubt he would be good, or this at least as good as he was last year going forward. Every team knows there's the potential that he continues to decline. I think he won't decline like that, but it's in the range of outcomes, and the Cardinals can be stuck with that money. So again, I'm not against them keeping Arenado, but I still think it's ideal he's moved, because I do think you want to know what Gorman is as a third baseman. You want to know what Donnie is as a full-time player. You want to know what Nootbaar, I guess Nootbaar is playing time. You want to know what Burleson is. You want to know what JC is. Yeah, and I want that flexibility for Bloom, but we'll see. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think we probably all agree the likely outfield is Nootbaar, Siani, Walker.
Unfortunately, yes.
So maybe if Scott proves enough, he can sneak his way in there. So
I just noticed that Mo pronounced Siani's name right in the presser. I think that was the first time.
He learned it now. We should have asked him about Sinisi and see what he did. But okay, rotation. So far, stacking up to look like Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, Andre Plante, Miles Michaelis, and then one of Steven Matz or Michael McGreevy.
Terrible.
Again, an injury will probably happen, which it could be McGreevy that gets injured. But like if one of those 5 go down, McGreevy's probably next man up. Potential other options for the rotation looks like a Matthew Liberatore, Zach Thompson, Quinn Matthews, Sem Robersa. Then you start getting to like maybe later in the year, but not right away. Takeo Roby, Tinkens, stuff like that.
Say it louder for the people in the back, Josh. Kyle Leahy.
Oh, I should never have told you that was thrown out there.
Kyle Leahy, let's go. Kyle Leahy, Cy Young 2026.
I don't know how serious that is. I think it was just like hey, that could happen. But
who said that? Was that Mo that said that, or
no? Derek Gould said that. It was like someone asked him someone asked him, what's an Andre Palante type name to watch this year? And he was like, oh, I like Kyle Leahy, someone that they've thought about stretching out before. But he wasn't like they are for sure trying Kyle Leahy in the rotation. I have not heard of that.
Kyle Leahy, Cy Young 2026.
We'll see. Again, okay.
That's probably like minus like 9 million odds. If you bet on that right now, bet $1 on that, you're going to be rich.
That's true.
Higher or lower 0.5 Cy Youngs for Kyle Leahy on Underdog.
Ooh, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to take lower, but that was a tough one. That was a good line you set up there.
Thank you.
Okay, so confidence level rotation next year, guys. What are we thinking?
I hate it.
Oh, go for it. You hate it.
I get like why it has to be this way. And the Cardinals, we've talked about this at length before. The Cardinals have unfortunately a pattern of if we're paying you real money, you will play no matter what it looks like for the most part. Because I mean, who's a guy the Cardinals have cut ties with for real? Like seriously, there are guys that they should have gotten rid of. They should have gotten rid of Dexter Fowler at some point in time. They finally sort of did in the very last year when there was very little money left, but he still ended up getting traded. Besides, like, I haven't really seen the Cardinals do what the Astros were willing to do last year and actually remove somebody from the roster like they did with Jose Abreu. Holding Bose water, I see. But I do worry that with Miles Mikolas, they're going to be unwilling to cut ties no matter what the performance looks like, at least for the first 3 months. I think they're going to be too slow in pulling the trigger on him. And as a Miles Mikolas supporter, it pains me to say that I think he will be worse than he was last year. And I think last year, as bad as he was, at least he provided volume. At least the Cardinals won half the games he pitched in. I don't see him winning half the games Mikolas pitches in this year. I think it could be even worse. And I think if it does get worse, they need to pull the trigger quickly and get him out of there. And again, we'd love to see what these guys have. At the beginning of the offseason, it felt like we were committed to that. Now it doesn't. And I don't care what Miles Mikolas has. He's not going to be on the team in 2026, barring some absurd extension that makes no sense at all, or some weird offseason reunion because they're directionless. I don't see that happening. I don't see Steven Matz being on the team in 2026. I don't see Eric Fetty being on the team in 2026. So I'd love to see what these guys have. If the Cardinals are committed to doing that at other spots around the diamond, they should be committed to doing that in the rotation because, you know, these guys, the position players might not have anything. And if that's the case, I'd love to figure out what the pitchers have because if the offense stinks, you're not going to make the playoffs anyway. So move on from some of these guys. I know it seems like they're not going to trade Fetty anymore, which I think is ridiculous. You could have gotten something real back for him. I think you could move the Matz money. I really do think he's a market surplus when you look at what some of these other guys got. Maybe the rest of the baseball world doesn't agree with me, but I've heard for a fact the Cardinals have gotten calls on him. Why are we not picking up the phone? Why are we not moving him? Also, if you're talking about an injury happening to someone, I would bet everything I have that it's going to be Steven Matz first. I'm tired of covering for him. I have been a Steven Matz supporter. When he's on the field, he's fine, but he is never on the field. It doesn't even matter what it is. It's always something. So I'd love to see McGreevy in the rotation. And if he's not in the opening day rotation, I'm going to be very upset. Unfortunately, I think I'm teeing myself up to be very upset.
Yeah.
If this is opening a shortstop, Sandy.
Oh my gosh, why?
Anyway.
I do think, Mo kind of laid the groundwork for the fact that he thinks McGreevy will end up being in the rotation because he basically called out Steven Matz without calling out Steven Matz, where he said during his presser, he's like, historically, we have some guys in the rotation who cannot be relied on to go pull to bull. And it's like, that's not Miles Mikolas. It's not Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray missed a couple starts last year, but nothing crazy. That's not Eric Fetty. That's not Andre Palante. So who is it? It's Steven Matz. Like, I think he's fully expecting it. And also, too, like if McGreevy pitches well in camp, I do think he's a guy that Matt specifically, I think, could get moved to the bullpen. They've done it before. They'll do it again. It's Miles Mikolas that I don't think they would move out of the rotation quickly.
Okay, but if you're going to put Matz in the bullpen, just trade the guy, because I'm not paying $11 or $12 million for reliever Matz. That's ridiculous.
Well, you're playing for the stability and depth there too.
I know, and like he's a potential starter. But if you're putting Matz out of the rotation at that point, there are other guys I'd rather see be the sixth starter than Steven Matz. And I think it'd be easier to move Matz from 6 to 7 than from 5 to 6.
What if they go 6-man rotation? That would be.
They would not.
Would they not?
No, there's no way. They've talked about it every year and they don't do it. They're not going to do it.
I would love to see Liberatore get more starts than Steven Matz. Also, like, this needs to be talked about. Steven Matz is a historically slow starter, and like, Steven Matz ERA in April with the Cardinals is probably like 6. It's really bad. Every year he starts really slow. I don't think he's ever had a good first start with the Cardinals, and I don't know. I think, especially when you get hurt as much as he does, like, if he's going to get injured after 6 starts and the 4 of those 6 are going to be terrible, and then he's going to come back in June or whatever and be good for a month and a half to make his numbers look good, and then he's going to get injured again. Like, it's happened 3 times. Why are we suddenly thinking it's going to be different this time around? I don't understand how you could possibly be banking on him coming into this year when you have McGreevy sitting right there.
Well, I don't think they are banking on him. I just think it's like, hey, McGreevy's got to earn the spot. Same with Quinn Matthews. It's like,
yeah.
I think if Camp comes around and Quinn Matthews looks dominant, and again, they think he's ready, I don't think Steven Matz is staying his way. I do think Fetty would be. I do think Palante would be. I do think Gray would be.
Michaelis.
Kind of Michaelis.
Yeah.
I don't think they just have to scrap Steven Matz right now, because you can trade him later. And also, what if, again, and I don't think this will happen, but what if you come into camp and McGreevy doesn't look great, Quinn Matthews clearly needs more seasoning, Tink Henstico, you don't want to rush, Liberatore you prefer in a bullpen role, then it's like, okay, well, who do we start? Then you got Matz, but if other guys are ready, then you move into the bullpen, and he's a swing guy, and I don't mind Matz's spot on the roster right now.
That's fine, I guess. I don't know. I just, like, even if some of these guys aren't ready, like, I don't know. How much more ready is Robersa going to get, or Graceffo? Yeah. I just want to see them get a shot at this point so we can.
Agreed. Yeah.
Like, I think I'd rather see Graceffo than Matz. I'd rather see Graceffo than Michaelis. Those two in particular, it's just time. Cut bait.
Yeah.
You can't trade Michaelis probably. So just move on. Like, it's $18 million, eat it. He's not going to provide $18 million worth in value. He might provide $0 worth in value. He might provide negative value to your franchise this year.
Yeah.
Like, cut ties. Move on.
Hey, overall, though, I mean, like, this rotation stays healthy for the most part. Like, you get a full season of Gray, and I think the traditional outputs can be better than it was last year.
Yeah.
You get a full season of Fetty this time, which you only had him for 10 starts last year. And again, he had a 3.7 something, or like 3.75 ERA for the Cardinals last year. So he's like the perfect mix, or he's like gives you the Kyle Gibson innings, but does it with Lance Lynn's ERA last year when Lance Lynn couldn't give you innings and Kyle Gibson was like a 4 ERA. So it's like Fetty's a good 3 starter. You get a full season of Palante, who, again, you only got half the season last year, and he was good. And then, again, you've got Matz and Michaelis, but one of those guys could be replaced by Quinn Matthews at some point, who could be really good. Like, there's a world where I think this rotation is probably average and has the potential to be slightly above average next year, which is, compared to 2 years ago, huge improvement. So again, I don't have confidence in this rotation in October necessarily, unless Quinn Matthews pops off. Then you've got Gray and Matthews, and it's like, okay, you've got 2 guys.
Yeah, you can True.
And then Palante, Palante is your third, or
Fetty is a viable third.
But I do think I have like if I had to grade the rotation, I'd say like a C, like it's average. We'll see.
Yeah, with potential to finish as a C+ or even a B- unit. For sure. I don't hate that.
And I like that we can rattle off 15 options basically.
That's really
and I mean, again, not 15 options we're super confident in, but like I mean, sure, let's see Graceffo. Sure, let's see Robersa. Let's see. Yeah.
I wonder what they do if they're within 3 games of the division at the trade deadline.
It's a great question.
I think they'll go for it first off.
Well, no, they won't. They're not going to increase their payroll. Their payroll will
won't sell. The Cardinals won't sell.
Yeah, but going for it and doing nothing at the deadline are two different options.
That's what going for it means for the Cardinals. Like going for it means not selling and adding on the fringes.
I mean, it also depends what's the attendance. Like if they're in it and people are going to games in the summer, they'll probably have flexibility. And they've said that they don't need to move Nato. So like if they do move Nato, then they do definitely have financial flexibility. I'm not saying they're going to acquire a bunch. And also when you acquire stuff at the deadline, you're acquiring the like last third of someone's salary, not like
but they're not going to get like a rental that's like expensive.
No, but they could add something.
Yeah.
They could add
I mean, I'm not thinking they're going to Juan Soto.
Well, yeah.
They could add a number 3 starter.
Man, I cannot believe it's a great question.
Oh, I'm just wondering. Like, I would genuinely, because that's what their plan is. I don't think they'll get there, but I just wonder, like, what will happen if that does happen. Like, do they have a plan? Probably not.
Wait and see. All right. So rotation, I feel like we think it's like fine. We'll see what happens. But this is the one where I'm really curious where we all land. We'll land on is the bullpen. Talk about returning characters from last year. That's Ryan Helsley. That's Ryan Fernandez. That's Jojo Romero, Matthew Liberatore, John King. And then I think those are the only 5 you could really say are for sure in the bullpen. After that, it's Kyle Leahy, Chris Roycroft, Ryan Ludis, Riley O'Brien, Bailey Horn, Andre Granillo, Matt Savanson, Munoz. Graceffo's a guy I feel like keeps getting name dropped as a potential bullpen arm. I could see Tank or Jerpy or Roby at some point getting bullpen innings. Sandy is the resident, like your favorite players are always the 7th reliever on the team.
Hey, John King is not the 7th reliever anymore. Okay. He is for sure on the roster this year.
He has been upgraded.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. I'm thinking about picking a new reliever to glaze this year and use my double magic to make him good, but I don't want to.
But do you make them good? Is Kyle Leahy good, or is he just like?
Kyle Leahy is an above-average reliever, and I will say it until I die. He's
like a 101 ERA plus.
100. That's right. No, I think it's like 108. Okay.
There's no way it's 108.
Dude, Kyle Leahy, underrated player. Okay, I don't know why everyone's got to hate on my guy. 104. What's the difference? Not terrible, but I don't know. I think the bullpen unit is going to be strong. Also, Kyle Leahy, sneaky 3.56 FIP last year. Very nice. Ooh. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Go Leahy.
Some respect on his name. I think he'll be in the bullpen. I really do on opening day. I think he has an intriguing pitch mix. I think there's room for improvement over last year. And I think last year he was a very solid pitcher, almost appeared in 50 innings, 33 games. He's a multi-inning reliever, which is really nice. You can get 5-6 outs out of him at times, which is super valuable. That's a really good quality. I think John King will be back. Very excited to watch him. I will be so excited every time he goes in the game because that's my guy. Elite ground ball pitcher. Obviously, Ryan Helsley is a lockdown closer. The Cardinals just need him to be healthy this year. They need to be able to trade him at the deadline if they're out of it, or potentially before the deadline, get even more back. And if they're in it, they need Ryan Helsley locking down games because that's going to be the recipe again this year. Even if the offense is slightly improved, they're still going to need a really strong bullpen to stay in contention at all this year, as we know. Jojo Romero will be back. I'm not as high on him as I was last year. I think Jojo Romero was pretty lucky last year, looking at the gap between his expected ERA and actual ERA. He gave up a lot of hard contact. He finished with a 3.36 ERA, but a 4.27 FIP, which is a huge jump from his 2.22 FIP last year, where he actually underperformed with a 3.68 ERA. So that scares me a little bit. But those are the guys coming back. Like, we know those names. I think the most intriguing guys that could mix in for the first time this year, to me, are probably Graceffo and Granillo, and maybe Matt Swanson. Kareem's really high on Matt Swanson. So if you want to see some stuff about him, check out Kareem's Twitter. We've talked about him on Birds on the Farm. He's a true relief pitcher prospect. They got him in the Paul DeJong trade, which is actually awesome that you could get something valuable for Paul DeJong. He's come a long way since getting to the Cardinals. When the Cardinals acquired him, he was too old for AA, and he'd found no success there. But he actually turned into a very interesting strikeout-heavy guy last year at AAA, and I do think he'll get a look this year. Kareem has talked about him potentially having the potential to be like a late inning option. The fastball is really great. So there's a lot to like. Look at Kareem glazing Leahy in the comments. We absolutely love that. Yeah, Leahy just needs to change his pitch mix 100%. But yeah, there's guys here. There's a lot of depth. I think they're going to build it out in a similar way they did last year. They're going to ride the hot hand a lot. They're going to be moving guys up and down, which is something we saw last year and we didn't see in 2023. So that's really exciting. And the options that are moving up and down are good. Andre Granillo could be a good MLB reliever, right? Like some of the guys they've brought in the offseason, they acquired, Mosqueda in the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft. We haven't said his name yet. We're pretty intrigued by some of his stuff. So there are a lot of options here. There are probably like 15 to 20 at least interesting options for the Cardinals, which is exactly what you want to see when that recipe worked so well last year.
Yeah. Hey,
at least
Samuel, hop in the chat real quick. Like and subscribe. It's a good reminder. Make sure to keep going.
Yeah, at least the reliever that you glaze actually got to play.
Are you talking about Jacob Basiakovic?
Yeah.
No, you don't get to you can't
He's
pick
my
a guy.
favorite.
It'd be like me picking Fermin and being like, oh, Fermin's my guy, and then being upset when he didn't play.
I mean, I don't know. Jacob Basiakovic didn't give up a single run for the Cardinals last year. That's all I'm going to say.
Is Packy Naughton still on the roster?
Yeah, he's in AAA. He's not on the 40-man, though.
Is he healthy?
I don't know.
Because he was hurt all of the last 2 years, but the Cardinals were interested in Naughton at some point in time, so maybe he remains.
They resigned him. I think he's out till mid-season with his because he got re-injured.
Injuries have been really tough on him, but he's another option once he's healthy from the left side, so kind of interesting. I think Liberatore is going to make the roster regardless, so that's nice. We've seen Zach Thompson have elite stuff as a reliever in 2022. He was awesome, although I think he was pretty lucky. And I do think the Cardinals may want to see what he has as a starter if things go south. Andrew's shaking his head. He doesn't want to see Thompson start at all.
Please don't.
Yeah,
I've seen enough. But
yeah, I mean, we got to see what his velocity is like.
I mean, there's like 6 other guys I'd rather see than Zach Thompson again.
That's fair.
For the second time. So,
although I wouldn't be shocked if they stretch him out and let him eat innings in AAA until they need him.
I mean, that's fine. I'm okay with that, but just please, there's 6 other guys that deserve opportunities over Zach Thompson. But I don't know. The bullpen is interesting. I feel like other than Ryan Helsley, it's a lot of question marks right now. I'm not very high on JoJo. I think they should have traded him in the offseason. Maybe they still will, but I don't think they will. I think they're holding everybody. And then, I don't know, John King, Kyle Leahy, those are guys that, could be good. They could be bad. Sandy thinks they're probably going to be better than they are, but, it is what it is with those guys. And then hopefully a high leverage guy emerges, like a guy that Heimblum just finds, with Fernandez. He had a rough second half last year. I don't know if he'll necessarily be that high leverage, 7th, 8th inning guy again this year. But I mean, I just think there's a lot of intriguing options, and I trust Ollie Marmol to get it done, and I know that's controversial, but he did a great job at the bullpen last year, and I'm excited to see what he has to offer this year. I like Ollie. Everyone knows that.
We do like that.
Hey, maybe that's the last portion that we do this real quick. Is there confidence in the coaching staff this year? I didn't think about that. Ollie, you got Brant Brown in town.
If Ollie's in charge, then the coaching staff doesn't matter.
That's true.
I'm the biggest Ollie Glazer of all time.
I was a little bit worried. I didn't think I was going to be worried about joining the media room or being starstruck by anyone, and I wasn't. I feel like I can handle myself around major league players. But the closest I got was when Ollie Marmol entered the room.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was so excited to see him, especially because he came in unannounced on day 2. He just showed up. I was like, oh, that's Ollie. I knew when everyone else was coming, I was ready for it. But then Ollie showed up completely unannounced, and I was like, that's my guy right there.
I did not expect you to be like that, excited to see Ollie.
He's my favorite.
Gradual metamorphosis, and it's finally reached its last stage of just full blaze.
I honestly
I don't get the Ollie. Hey, I really don't. I understand that when the team plays badly, you blame the manager. But if you look at what the manager's actually doing and what he's actually controlling, he does a great job.
Oof. You're about to make some enemies with people on here, I'm sure. But hey, I don't disagree with you, man. I think Ollie's a good manager. A good, I'd say, not I'm not gonna call him a top 5.
I like his
top 10 manager.
When he gets ejected, it's great. It's my favorite part when he gets ejected.
I love ejected Ollie. Elite.
I love ejected Ollie. But yeah. Oh, so yeah, Ollie, obviously newcomers to the staff, and John Jay. Brant Brown's the hitting coach. You've got some the staff expanded a little bit and they added some other people. You're bringing back Pop Warner and Turner Ward, Stubby Clapp. You've got Dusty Blake back as the pitching coach this year. I mean, it feels like you've gotten some pretty good reviews about Dusty Blake over the past year. I feel like you started to see some guys like really credit Blake's influence in their development. Man, who was it? Was it Tink Hence that came in during winter warmup and was talking about some stuff that him and Dusty Blake had worked on? Maybe it was on one of the young pitchers said something that Dusty Blake had really influenced him early on. And then Keenan Middleton actually influenced people a little bit too. Man, who was the pitcher that had Keenan with his curveball?
I remember this too. It was on the first day. It was.
Cannot remember. It wasn't Palante.
It wasn't Tink. I don't think you were there for Tink.
I was there for Tink.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Maybe it was him.
Maybe. Anyways, but Brant Brown obviously was getting a ton of hype from the players and coaching staff at winter warmup. Ollie, I guess, and then John Jay, Daniel Scott. So what I'm confident in is I think they've crafted a really interesting staff for the kind of team they have this year. The young team. Like I think Daniel Sasso, John Jay, Brant Brown, and Ollie Marmol, Dusty Blake, these all seem like guys you kind of want to have around young players. I don't know what they look like with the veteran-led team, which I mean was kind of more last year. But they kind of seem like guys that get fired up by the idea that they're helping pour into guys, help develop players. Obviously that's Ollie's background. That's Daniel Scalzo and John Jay's story and their background. So I'm excited to see how this coaching staff works this year.
Yeah, I have a high degree of confidence. I think the ceiling is high and the floor is mid to kind of low.
Yeah.
Andrew loves him some Oliver Marmol. I think Ollie's a fine manager. I think they're going to be all right in his hands. And the nice thing is the fan base isn't so tied to anyone on this coaching staff that if things do go poorly, they're not going to be too afraid to move on and go a new direction. So.
I mean, Cardinal fans wouldn't mind if Ollie's fired. I've never seen a Cardinal fan say that.
I've never seen a Cardinal fan say that.
Not a single person call for Ollie.
I would be upset if Ollie gets fired this year.
I think they've all asked for extensions. I think they don't want Ollie to have a second extension.
Hey, number one extension candidate right now is Ollie. Let's do it again.
That's not a bad point, actually.
I dare you to write a story on it.
I won't.
I read somewhere, I'm a political science student. I promise I'm going to tie this in. I read somewhere that in some states, the governors are of the opposition party to the legislature, and they're really popular because they're a great scapegoat. And people just like to have them there to just scapegoat them. Is Ollie that with the front office? Like, does the front office keep Ollie around just so that fans can hate on him and not them?
Maybe. No. And it's not his fault. He's a good manager.
Yeah, I agree.
And filling out the lineup card, yeah, what are you going to do? Move Goldie and Arenado down? If you move Goldie and Arenado down, you're cooked. It's over. Season's over. So what was he supposed to do?
Well, it was also like, it wasn't like there was someone batting behind them that was really good. Like,
yeah, no one was really pushing for that.
What are we doing? Like,
Burleson for like a month, and then he cooled off too.
That was the most annoying part of last season when we talk about the Goldie stuff is we're pulling our hair out being like, obviously Goldie shouldn't be hitting fourth, but like also at the same time, do you want Michael Ciani batting fourth? Do you want Pedro Pages batting fourth? Like,
Gorman.
Like, there was never a good answer for what else do you do. And so like the best answer, I mean, obviously it didn't work out, but I wasn't, I mean, there were times where we were saying, Ollie, stop doing this. But there was also times where it's like, well, I probably have more confidence that Goldschmidt's finally going to figure it out in July than I do Gorman when he's got a 40% strikeout rate. Like, what do you do?
Well, and Goldie was like quietly mid over the 2 months of summer, you know, like he wasn't horrible at that point in time.
I think he had like a high 700 OPS, maybe close to 800 from June on.
Yeah, it was fine.
So
like after the beginning where he was just devastating, but also like with runners on, he was so bad that it didn't even.
Oh yeah, that was just, it was brutal. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about Ollie and the lineup card stuff last year. And then also he managed the bullpen incredibly well. So give him some flowers there. But
also his ejection led to the Cardinals being the best team in baseball for like 2 months.
Yeah.
Very fun time to be a fan.
So there you go.
You'd love to see it. Well, that's a little bit of a roster review from from us going into the season. Obviously, we'll have a better picture as spring training comes around. We'll get to see some of the storylines pop up and kind of how guys are playing and react a little bit to how we think the roster is shaking out. Obviously, Nolan Arenado's status impacts this conversation a ton, so we'll see what happens with that. Cardinals have left the door open to adding a reliever and right-handed bat, which also changes the conversation a little bit. But for the most part, we know a lot of the players and where they're going to be at, just kind of specifically playing time, at bat usage, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. So we've got a special Birds on the Farm episode coming Saturday, I think, right? It's being recorded on Saturday. Is it being released Saturday though?
I don't know. We'll figure that out.
We'll announce that stuff later. We'll let you know. I think we'll be back on Sunday to record, or Monday maybe, actually. We'll talk to Sandy about it afterward. But always appreciate the support. Like and subscribe. It helps the channel a ton. Make sure to go check out 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles for all your baseball card collecting needs. Use our code CARDS on Underdog Sports, which you can use the link in the description to access that for a first free pick 'em, and then also a bonus cash offer up to $1,000. We always appreciate the support. Like and subscribe helps the channel a ton. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Ollie.